Okay, I started streaming. Welcome to the stream, everybody. Today we are reacting to the David case, known as D4VD. Yeah, but we're just gonna be reacting to his videos on what evidence
I'm on.
that is going against him. Okay, so we're reacting to the David case, as I said before. Some context: he's a music artist, and his platinum song "Romantic Homicide," he offed a 14-year-old girl, Celeste, that's her name, but that's what to get it into. Alright, let's just start this stream, I guess.
Now, most people have already heard about this story. Popular singer David, spelled D4VD, was arrested in connection with the death of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez. But what's come out since then changes everything. The motive, the timeline, and what happened the last night Celeste was ever seen, when David invited her to his home in the Hollywood Hills, and she never came back.
Celeste, a 14-year-old at that time, went to Mr. Burke's house in the Hollywood Hills. She was never heard from again.
And months later, in September 2025, that's when everything changed.
Police say the car had been at the lot for a couple of days. When asked about reports the vehicle is registered to 20-year-old singer David.
It has said that he had 3 Teslas. That said in his Instagram photos. He had a red Tesla, a black Tesla, and we don't know if he had a third one, but it'd be a white one. Alright, I'll just unpause it.
Because inside a car registered to the singer, investigators made a discovery: remains found in the front trunk, unidentified at the time. After sitting there for months, it was eventually revealed that those remains belonged to
Wow. He tried to escape the country. He was on tour, state, and all that shit. He had somebody abandon the Tesla, and the Tesla, it started smelling weird, like dead remains.
14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez, a teenage girl from Riverside County, California, who had initially been reported missing back in April 2024. Celeste had disappeared out of Lake Elsinore that same month. According to authorities, her family searched, put out flyers, shared her photos, asking anyone with information to come forward, hoping their daughter would be found. The family had reported Celeste missing from her hometown of Lake Elsinore, about 70 miles outside of Los Angeles. She was just a 7th grader, and Celeste had run away before, and at one point, she did return home. But after leaving again, this time, she never came back. For months, there were questions, and no answers about her whereabouts. But eventually, in September 2025, they would learn the truth, that Celeste was no longer missing. She had been killed, and as her family was continuing to come to terms with that, things were only just beginning to unfold. Within 48 hours of Celeste being officially identified, investigators made their next move, executing a search warrant overnight at a home in the Hollywood Hills area, where David, D4VD, Burke, had been living. and from that point, the investigation started to unravel. But for the public, very little was known. Details were limited in this case, and questions kept coming up, until recently, because just recently, David was arrested in connection with the case, which sent shockwaves across social media and raised even more questions. But now, after all this time, the case against David is starting to become a lot clearer. We now know that he's now facing a first-degree murder charge, and now we actually have his mugshot. Let's just take a second and really look at this. We now also have what they say was the motive, a timeline of what allegedly happened, and the evidence they claim to have. And when you put all of it together, this case becomes a lot worse than people thought. Now, to really understand how this even got to that point, we have to go back to on or about April 23rd, 2025, when, according to investigators, David invited Celeste to his home in the Hollywood Hills area. Celeste arrived, and according to investigators, this was the last time she was known to be alive. Now, up until this point, there have been speculation about the nature of his involvement with Celeste. And it's important to be clear here, we're talking about a grown man and a minor. According to investigators, that is no longer speculation. They allege that David was sexually involved with Celeste, and that this began when she was under the age of 14.
During the course of our investigation, detectives learned that she had been involved in a sexual relationship with Mr. Burke when she was a minor and he was an adult.
But it doesn't stop there, because according to the criminal complaint, investigators say Celeste had at one point been living with David, and in their words, he had recurring access to her, which meant this wasn't something distant or limited. This was direct access over a period of time. Now, when it comes to that last night Celeste was alive, this is when they say things took a much darker turn. They allege that at some point after Celeste arrived to David's home, she threatened to expose the relationship between the two, including the fact that it began when she was underage, which David of course knew could seriously damage his career. At the time, David was a rising mainstream artist, and just 2 days earlier, he had announced a Withered World Tour, a global tour set to take him across multiple countries as his career was continuing to expand, and that detail matters. According to investigators, this is where the motive comes in. See, investigators believe that once Celeste became a threat to David, after she threatened to expose their relationship, the situation escalated. And what happened next, they say, is where things went downhill.
This murder was committed for financial gain. As the evidence will show in court, the financial gain was for Mr. Burke to maintain his very lucrative musical career that Celeste was threatening.
They allege that after she threatened to expose him, the situation escalated into her murder. However, it didn't stop there. They allege that on or about May 5th, 2025, Celeste's remains were further altered. Her remains were later found inside a vehicle connected to David, of course.
So, Celeste's body was cut up in pieces, okay? Her arms were cut off, her legs, and her head. I don't know about her head, actually. But her body, it was just her torso and then her upper legs. And that was it. That was the body. But when the cops went to try and see if David did anything with her body, they couldn't find out. They couldn't find anything because where the body was so decomposed. That was about it. I'll pause it.
That we know, where they had been left for months before finally being discovered at an impound lot in September 2025 in Los Angeles. And the evidence they have is what they say connects him to what happened to Celeste. Now, getting into the specifics, this criminal complaint against David also includes special circumstances. And these are very important because they make the case significantly more serious. According to the complaint, one of those is murder for financial gain. Another is the murder of a witness, with Celeste being considered that witness. And the third is what's called lying in wait, which means police believe the act was carried out in a deliberate and concealed manner. The complaint also alleges that David personally used a deadly weapon, described as a sharp instrument, in what happened to Celeste. In other words, they allege a sharp object was used in the killing of Celeste. Now that lying in wait part, that's important to understand, because in legal terms, it's not just about what happened, it's about how it allegedly happened. Lying in wait basically means someone waits, watches, and then carries out a surprise attack. In other words, it suggests planning and it suggests intent. Now if you try to picture this for a second, Celeste shows up to the home she was invited to by David, not knowing what she's actually walking into. And according to authorities, what happened next was anything but expected. They allege this wasn't random, but something that involved waiting, concealment, and a deliberate act in what happened to Celeste. And legally, that makes the case much more serious, because when or if prosecutors are able to prove something like that, it can elevate the charges and significantly increase the potential consequences. Now, to really understand how this even got to that point, we have to go back to 2023, when this situation, not relationship, situation involving David and Celeste was already developing behind the scenes. At this point, authorities say the two were already sexually involved, while Celeste was still under the age of 14, but the full extent of it is still not entirely clear. What we do know is this. According to the criminal complaint, between September 7th, 2023 and September 7th, 2024, David was reportedly involved with Celeste during that time. And this wasn't a one-time situation. Prosecutors allege that this was ongoing over an extended period of time. It's also during this time that investigators say Celeste had at one point been living under the same roof as David. Now, one thing that's still not entirely clear at the time of me recording this video is how exactly Celeste being considered a witness fits into everything we're talking about right now. Although this is included in the complaint, they haven't fully explained what they're specifically referring to, or exactly what she may have been a witness to. Now, based on what's been alleged so far and what we know so far, you can start to piece everything together yourself in your head, if you get what I mean, right? Especially considering that they've already said she was threatening to expose the relationship. So one can only assume that she was a witness in her own case. You get what I'm saying? But we don't know that yet. So as of right now, that part of the case hasn't been fully laid out publicly.
The details of the allegations that have made, particularly with that special circumstance, will be produced in court.
Now we're at a point where we know, according to the authorities, that there was an ongoing situation between the two, that Celeste at one point was living under the same roof as David, and that he had direct and recurring access to her. And on that final night, she threatened to expose that. And from there, they allege everything escalated, leading to her murder. Now, one of the biggest questions people have been asking is, why did all this take so long? Why did it take this long for the police to make an arrest? And according to the authorities, a big part of that comes down to the condition of Celeste's remains. Because of how much time had passed between her death and when she was unfortunately discovered in the manner she was discovered, it delayed the medical examiner's ability to determine a clear cause of death. And that also meant that crucial evidence had either degraded or completely disappeared over time, unfortunately. On top of that, investigators were also dealing with something else, a massive amount of false information that was spreading online. If you guys remember, when the story first broke, things were pretty chaotic. There was a lot being said, and the majority of it was actually not accurate. And even a lot of very popular media outlets ended up pushing information that wasn't fully verified at all. And because law enforcement had to sort through all of that information while trying to piece together what was done to Celeste, it made this investigation that much more difficult, and ultimately, that's what added all this time to it. Now, another key reason why this case took time is because, according to the authorities, there was no direct eyewitness who actually saw what happened to Celeste. And on top of that, they also didn't have any clear footage that directly shows David committing the act. So, what that meant was investigators had to rely on something else, a full and extremely thorough investigation. They went through digital evidence, they went through forensic evidence, and every lead they could find, while also speaking to witnesses. And according to the authorities, not everyone they spoke to was cooperative. So before bringing any charges, they wanted the highest level of confirmation possible based on everything they had collected. And that brings us to another question people have been asking. What makes them so confident that they can actually prove this case? It comes down to the totality of the evidence. They say they have a combination of physical evidence, forensic evidence, and digital evidence that they plan to present in court. In fact, they say the amount of evidence collected totals over 40 terabytes. Not gigabytes, terabytes. And based on
40
everything they've
terabytes is
gathered,
crazy.
they believe they can prove their case against David beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, at the same time, his legal team is pushing to move things forward, requesting a preliminary hearing within the next 10 days. Right now, we don't know exactly what that evidence is, or what it looks like in detail. And anyone who tells you that they have that evidence is obviously lying. But that's something we're likely going to learn very soon. What we do know is that based on everything that's been laid out so far, this case is way worse than we thought. And we're only just starting to see what it looks like. Now, with all that being said, I think it's important we stay focused on what actually happened here. A child lost her life. And that's something that shouldn't get lost in all these very grim and dark details, or all the noise around his case. Celeste had her whole life ahead of her. You know, it was taken from her, and it was all taken from her in a situation she should have never been in to begin with. And that's not something anyone can put on her, because Celeste was a child, and children aren't capable of understanding the kind of situations they're being placed in. It's just tragic, and it's a reminder of how important it is that we protect children in this world and take situations like this seriously. Rest in peace to Celeste Rivas, and I hope justice is served for what was done to this little girl. I'm out.
I have tested a ton.
My bad for the screen fix. But Celeste did not deserve to lose her life. In my opinion, David should be locked up for life. If he gets out, that's a shocker to me. He should not. He needs to stay life in there. She was just a little girl, and she didn't deserve all that. Like, especially, she was 14, talking to like a 20-year-old, 18, 19. At first, where does he see that it's right? Like, right for all that? He is a platinum artist, and he's talking to a little girl. And then, when she goes to, like, expose him, he kills her. Like, officer, my fault. I'm sorry, you too. She did not deserve to lose her life in all of that. Rest in peace, Celeste Rivas. That's all I have to say. 14 years old.
We have 14.
She did not deserve all that, everybody. Not deserve that at all.
We also now know her official cause of
Death. It's officially been a year since her death today. Officially. This date isn't lost on me. That all of this information is breaking this week, and it is difficult to go over. But we are going to go through everything carefully and factually to understand what happened to this young girl who was seemingly groomed by a man on the internet. And not just any man, someone Celeste admired, a famous star in her world, a man whose world tour was cut short because, well, murder charges and abuse charges and 40 terabytes of evidence that the public is beginning to finally see. And oh my gosh, as the Los Angeles County Attorney's Office said, it is horrific. We have new statements. We have new details from court hearings that weren't public until today. We have new digital evidence. And I want to let you know, a warning, this is one of those cases where the more information that comes out, the more tragic it gets. This is going to be a difficult episode. 7 months ago, when we learned about Celeste's case, investigators had a lot of answers already, but the public did not. Her family did not. We didn't. But her family didn't. But now that's changed. Those answers are here. And we are learning what was happening behind the scenes this entire time. The information investigators held closely to their chest, filing for sealing the info. But it is no longer sealed. My name is Lauren Matthias, and this is Hidden True Crime. If you watched our last video, then you already know that we went over the charges, what prosecutors are alleging, and where this case is headed. But now we're at a point where we have a lot more detail, and I am not going to lie. Again, some of it is hard to read through. That being said, let's start with the biggest update, because this is what most people following this case have been wanting to understand for months. After 7 months, the cause of death for Celeste Rivas Hernandez has officially been released. The Los Angeles County Medical Examiner ruled that Celeste died from multiple penetrating injuries, and her death has been officially classified as a homicide. So as most of us suspected, this was not an accident, this was not natural causes, this was intentional violence. And that phrase, multiple penetrating injuries, that's just a sterile way of describing something incredibly brutal. The report goes further and says she had 2 penetrating wounds to her torso, one to the right side of her abdomen and one to the left side of her chest. One of them damaged her liver and the other went between her ribs and into her chest cavity. So if you think about that for a second,
let's go back.
Those, again, they're...
Okay. So, one, okay, here, right here on the leg, that's one spot, and then right here, and he's attacked, like, severed her foot. And then right here, and then right here. Then we have one, like, right under here. And again right here, and then you have one in the armpit right here. I'm surprised he didn't get her around here. That's just what this is. Like right here is a very fatal blow, and like the face, and then like one of the ribs. I'm surprised like they didn't find out sooner, because the body was dying really fast, especially in those spaces right there. Alright.
And one to the left side of her chest. One of them damaged her liver, and the other went between her ribs and into her chest cavity. So if you think about that for a second, those, again, they're not random, willy-nilly injuries. Those are targeted areas. The report also confirms dismemberment. Another one of those words that feels almost too clean for what it actually means. Now, something else that a lot of people didn't realize is that these findings, again, they were made months ago. The cause and manner of death, they were determined back in December. So for months, the answers technically existed, but the Los Angeles Police Department requested that the report be sealed while they were building their case. So the...
Alright. Right. So, I want to show everybody something. Okay. Hold on, everybody. Let me find the photos. So, y'all can't really see that, but and all, like, so right here where the intestines are, okay, if you like stab somebody right there, you'll kill them. Like, it'll internal bleeding. And if you get them like right here, the jugular, like, ooh. But he was targeting her like legs. he was targeting these specific spots. This is what I find weird. Like, so you have one in the lower thigh right here, and right here on the calf. One on the upper thigh, and then one in the upper calf, like the shins. And you have one in the ribs right here. And I think this is where he I think he took out her eyeballs and stuff. Just thinking about it turns my stomach. Oh, that's a handgun shot. I don't need that. But I think that was really weird. Like, he got those specific spots. It's like he was like targeting it. I don't know, it seems weird to me. Yeah. Like, that was like weird though.
Creating custom.
Like, really weird.
You died, and I didn't even cry, not a single tear. In the back of my mind, I killed you, and I didn't even regret it. I can't believe I said it, but it's true. I hate you.
I know, Van.
These are the lyrics from one of the biggest songs in 2022, Romantic Homicide. Sitting at almost 1.7 billion streams on Spotify, that's a milestone that very few artists have ever achieved, let alone an artist who was 18 at the time of this song's release, let alone an artist who has not one, but 2 songs with over 1 billion streams on Spotify before he's even of legal drinking.
This is what I mean when like his songs did really good, and he wasn't even like able to. He wasn't even 21. Like 1.6 billion viewed streams on the song though. That's crazy. Even before you turn 21. And Here With Me, which is 1.5 billion. Absolutely crazy. Like, it's crazy work.
In age within the US. Imagine having 33 million monthly listeners on Spotify before having your first legal beer. That was the case for David. And before this horrifying story broke out, possibly the most horrifying story I have ever read related to a musician, I didn't even know that David was a musician. I thought he was a streamer. I'm sure some of you guys are in the same boat as me and don't really understand what's going on. So as we break down this absolutely tragic situation, we'll try to put as many pieces to the puzzle together as possible. September 7th, 2022. A date that changed the life of a then 18-year-old singer by the name of David. This is the date that David released the music video for his song Romantic Homicide, which would go on to become his breakout single. September 7th, 2022 would also be a significant date for Celeste Hernandez, a child who was allegedly turning 12 on that.
I've explained everything about Celeste, but here, like, it just said when they started talking, she was 12 years old. That's crazy. I have a little sister, and she's turning 12 this year. She like, bro, it is crazy.
That date. Fast forward about a year and a half, April 5th, 2024. Celeste Hernandez is officially reported missing in Riverside County. And September 8th, 2025, what would be one day after Celeste's 15th birthday, her remains were allegedly discovered in Los Angeles inside of an impounded Tesla car, decomposed, dismembered into several pieces, and wrapped inside a plastic bag in the car's front trunk. Allegedly, the car in question had been towed to the impound lot after being abandoned in the Hollywood Hills. The car had been parked.
At the start of the stream, he has 3 Teslas that, well, we don't know if he has a third one, but through like messages and everything he does, he is a black Tesla, a red Tesla, and then a white Tesla. Her body, her dissevered body parts and her body was found in the front, which is the front trunk that Teslas have.
In the Hollywood Hills for at least a month. The body inside the vehicle had allegedly been there for an extended period of time. On September 16th, 2025, the local medical examiner publicly identified the body as Celeste Hernandez. The car in question was registered to David. David was out on tour when the car was towed. He hadn't been in Los Angeles. Did he even know who this woman was? The car might have been registered to him, but was it him or his team actively using it? In order to try to get an answer to these questions, analyze.
My sound was too quiet even at 100%. Then I found volume max. A
lot more, we gotta take it all the way back. David was born in Queens, New York in 2005. His family eventually moved out to Houston, Texas, where he grew up in a deeply Christian household. His childhood was shaped by gospel music and church choir. He learned piano and lived in a space where secular music was largely absent. He had said in an interview, "I grew to like being alone and finding creativity in isolation," a theme that would echo throughout his art. But his shelter from secular music had changed at around the age of 13. On his school laptop, he first heard the song Gucci Gang by Lil Pump, his first taste of mainstream rap. That moment cracked open a new world. He began discovering XXXTentacion, the members-only collective, and indie artists that he stumbled upon in unexpected ways. One of those ways was through the video game Fortnite. By middle school, David was homeschooled, which left him with a lot of time and a growing sense of isolation. Friends drifted away. Online, though, he found an outlet in Fortnite montages, editing gameplay clips, overlaying them with music, but there was a catch: copyright claims. The tracks he used in his videos would often lead to a copyright strike, which would force him to take them down. That's when his mother asked him a question that would change David's life forever. Why don't you just make your own music instead? And David's been blunt about it in the past, emphasizing that Fortnite is what led him to make music in the first place. One night, frustrated with copyright strikes, he simply searched how to make music on an iPhone. He recalled the moment saying, "This app called BandLab popped up. I downloaded it, and the next day, he began recording." His setup was bare bones, just an iPhone, a pair of wired Apple earbuds, and his sister's closet as a booth. But it was enough. From the start, David approached music like a gamer and a visual artist. He emphasized, "In the early days of creating music, my main inspiration was literally just Fortnite and video games." The cinematic quality of montages made David want to make his songs feel like mini movies. "I try to make music as visual as possible. When you hear it, you kind of craft the music video yourself," David had said. At the time, he was a professional Fortnite player. His music, on the other hand, it was intuitive, not necessarily calculated. He had said, 80% of the time, I'm in my sister's closet listening through my instrumental library without much writing beforehand. I'm a strong believer in the way sounds speak to me, as if an instrumental will sometimes literally tell me what needs to be said on it." David's catalog consisted of a lot of music dealing in heartbreak, loneliness, longing, but he had admitted that in his early days of creating music, a lot of these experiences were imagined emotions or living vicariously through others.
I would sit down and try to find things for inspiration because I was just writing these beautiful, beautiful songs. My mother was like, where is these lyrics coming from? You're homeschooled. What do you know about love? What do you know about heartbreak? I would go on Discord and I would go on Fortnite and I would not just let people talk to me and just tell me about their lives. And I would basically just take their lives and write songs about them.
It's a strange claim to make considering how vivid and dark and emotionally charged a lot of these lyrics are within his music. He started dropping songs on SoundCloud, and in July of 2022 is when he released the breakout single Romantic Homicide. He recorded that song in his sister's closet with the same old earbuds, but eventually the song blew up on TikTok. Suddenly, this teenager, who had been an anonymous gamer, was now climbing the charts. The track hit number 3 on Billboard's Hot Alternative Songs, and by September 2022, he had signed with the label Darkroom/Interscope. And soon after, he would score his second hit, Here With Me. By 2023, David's success would only get bigger. Keep in mind, he's only around 18 years old at the time, but he releases his debut EP, Petals to Thorns, a second EP later that year, The Lost Petals. He started performing around the world, even opening up for SZA's SOS tour. By the beginning of 2025, he dropped his debut album, Withered. Fortnite remained woven into his identity as he was tasked to write the official Fortnite anthem, Locked and Loaded. And by the middle of 2025, David embarked on his own solo tour. But fans noticed something strange about the tour from the jump. Every city he'd go to, every venue he'd play at, there would be a massive silver casket that would be carried into the event hall, placed right outside of the room David would perform in, and there'd be baskets of stickers and other little items related to his brand that fans would be able to pick up right next to the casket. Almost like a memorial service. Like we mentioned before, David's music, his brand aesthetic, was about heartbreak, loss, tragedy, and he said a lot of these scenarios were imagined. He was living vicariously through others. Maybe this was all just part of the larger aesthetic. But even without knowing what we know today, it's still a very strange way to kick off every single one of your shows.
Now, why would the artist do that?
Apparently you can go from 0 to a complete site in just a single prompt with Wix Harmony. I don't know if this is going to be possible.
This was a world tour that began on August 5th, 2025. David was supposed to be making a stop on the tour in LA on September 20th, 2025. Keep in mind, the tour kicked off on August 5th in Del Mar, California. Meaning, even though David was traveling across North America on this tour throughout the remainder of August, he kicked it off in California. Why this is significant is because, like I mentioned before, a Tesla that was registered under David's name had been parked on a street in Los Angeles for a large number of days. It had been towed on September 6th. 2 days later, due to the disgusting smell coming from the car, authorities opened it and located a body decomposing. About a week later, the body was identified as Celeste Hernandez, and according to people following the discovery, she appeared to be unalive for some time. Now, according to sources, although this vehicle is registered under David's name, it's one of several vehicles that he owns, and many different people use these vehicles at any given time. Because of this, and because of David's overall very nice public personality, although his lyrics are dark, his persona seemed very kind-hearted, and this led people to believe that there is no way he could have been responsible or even associated with anything going on with this situation. And of course, you're innocent until proven guilty, but new details continue to emerge within this story, so I'm going to emphasize to you guys what is confirmed as facts and what is speculation, but we are going to peel the curtain back on everything we know. So like I mentioned before, this Tesla had been abandoned in the Hollywood Hills for days. Then it was towed. It wasn't reported as stolen. And even with all the cameras surrounding a Tesla vehicle, for some reason, there's no footage that has leaked online of the last person to use this vehicle. Neighbors in the area that the car was abandoned in, however, had told the media that the car had been parked there for weeks. When the body was first found, David was still on tour, and according to NBC, a spokesperson for him had said he'd been informed about what happened, and even though he's still on tour, he's fully cooperating with authorities. After the official news was announced on September 8th that there was a body in the trunk of the Tesla, David continued doing shows, even handing out Labubus to the crowd at one of his performances. But immediately, big brands that were already working with him, like Epic Games, which owns Fortnite, Crocs, even Hollister, they all dropped their ad campaigns with him. Keep in mind, this is September 8th, before they've identified the body. Once they did, things really made a much darker turn. Like I mentioned earlier, investigators had said that Celeste had been reported as a runaway since April of 2024. By then, she would have just been 13. By the time they found her in the Tesla, she had just turned 15. As of the time that I'm recording this video, authorities have not named David as a suspect. However, according to TMZ, cops were looking into the possibility that Celeste was unalived inside the LA home where David was living. TMZ reports that investigators who searched the home were looking for blood. Law enforcement sources told TMZ that LAPD's Scientific Investigation Division took part in a 12-hour search of the home. As far as whether or not this is confirmed to be David's house, TMZ confirms that the house is being rented by Josh Marshall, which is David's manager. And in order to try and get as much proof that the home that was being investigated in LA connected to this crime was actually being lived in by David, TMZ went ahead and compared photos that David took inside his home to pictures on a real estate website of the home that's being investigated. What they found is the photos of the home being investigated are very similar to pictures and videos that David himself posted within his own home. Here he's seen dancing in the home. He's also seen singing in the kitchen with Benny Blanco. And there's a photo of him slouched over on a piano, which looks like the exact same piano in the picture from the real estate website. So we know that this home that police were investigating was very close to where the Tesla had been parked and abandoned before it was brought to the impound lot. The house was being rented by David's manager, and judging by what I just showed you guys, it looks like he had at least been inside this house and possibly living in it for a certain amount of time within the last 6 months. That's what we know as fact, but there's a lot of people coming forward with much more disturbing allegations that pretty much confirm to us that at the very least, David most definitely, again at the very least, knew Celeste. And this is where things take a much darker turn. Like I mentioned before, Celeste had been a runaway since April of 2024. Her mother had gotten closure in one of the most tragic ways possible, as the body in the Tesla was confirmed to be hers. After the confirmation, TMZ had spoken to Celeste's mother, who had said that she had a boyfriend named David. She also told TMZ that the police description of the body in the Tesla matched the way her daughter looks, as they found a tattoo on her finger that says shh, the letters SH. Now, there's several celebrities who have this tattoo, right? Rihanna, Lily Allen, Lindsay Lohan. This is a pretty popular design within pop.
I used to struggle with dandruff, but now I use Head & Shoulders every wash. Because the active ingredient in Head & Shoulders fights off the
culture. But what's disturbing is that David has the exact same tattoo. Right after this news came out, David immediately canceled his upcoming tour dates. It's also important to note, I'm not sure if I mentioned it earlier in this video, but when investigators did that 12-hour search of this home that his manager is allegedly renting, that David had allegedly maybe been living in, they allegedly walked out with a computer and several evidence bags. So it's very likely that we're going to get tons of updates on this case within the next few days. But there's a lot more we have to touch on here. Starting with this photo of David.
A surface photo showing David in Lake Elsinore, California, just 0.3 miles away from the home where Celeste however you say it, lived with her family before she disappeared in April 2024, according to TMZ. The spot where David was photographed is only a 6-minute walk from her family's residence.
This was taken in Lake Elsinore, California, sorry for mispronouncing that name, which is in Riverside County, 70 miles away from downtown Los Angeles, where the house was located that David's manager was renting. This is, however, the immediate area where Celeste had been living before she went missing. After TMZ analyzed Google Maps, they determined that David was standing 0.3 miles from the home where Celeste was living with her family before she disappeared back in April of 2024. The place David was standing is a 6-minute walk to Celeste's family home. We're just trying to figure out if he actually even knew her, right? And like I said earlier, there is a damning amount of evidence that shows that at the very least, he very much did. Starting with this picture of David and another woman. This resembles exactly what Celeste looks like. On top of the fact that she was found unalived in a vehicle that was registered to David, the added layer of this story that makes it even more disturbing is the fact that at the time that Celeste was found in the Tesla, she was 15 years old. David was 20. She went missing at 13. David had just turned 19. Now, as far as David's actual connection with Celeste, aside from her mother telling TMZ that she had a boyfriend named David, TMZ had also found a video from January 2024, 2 months before Celeste was reported missing, where she's allegedly on live stream with David.
Mitochondria?
I gotta sign with him if you even. We need to delete this.
Maz, can we delete all VODs? And then as soon as the stream ends, delete the stream too?
So it's pretty clear from this video alone, unless David knew another person who looked exactly like Celeste, it's obvious she was a person he knew. And here's where we get down a rabbit hole where, again, everything is alleged. But we have a Twitter thread from the account ProdCureMe that reads all proof that David did it. And the first thing they mention off the rip, aside from that video that TMZ reported of David with Celeste, there's more photo evidence that he was affiliated with someone named Celeste. And you can see they post 2 pictures, one where David and Celeste are allegedly together on FaceTime with someone else, and another where David is FaceTiming someone named Celeste. He also had a Discord community where we'll look at some alleged messages from within it that reveal some pretty disturbing things. Number one is that at one point you could see people within his Discord talking about how in early 2024 he was dating someone by the name of Celeste. The song that they're discussing in his Discord community that they say they believe is written about Celeste has a chorus where he says, "But you never really cared about the way that everything turned out. You didn't want to fall in love, you're looking out for yourself now. It's starting to piss me off. I thought I had you figured out. Never thought that you would call my bluff. Guess who belongs to someone else now." This song came out in March of 2024, about 2 months after David was allegedly on livestream with Celeste in the video that we looked at before. And
Well, everybody, I gotta end this stream early. I hope everybody has a good night. And remember, don't get like caught up in stuff with older people if you're underage. Gets older people into trouble. You'll end up dead. Well, off to my full YouTube again. If you try to like expose them or something that could harm you in a way, if they know where you live and anything like that. So take my advice. Get with people your own age. I mean, you may end up off somewhere in the frunk of a Tesla. But remember, everybody, have a good day, spread kindness throughout the world, and good night.